Okay, everybody, thank you so much. We want to welcome everyone to the 2022 Mercy Care Connections Conference. We're going to pass this on over to Laura.
Hey everyone, my name is Laura Poinkowski. I am the administrator of the Office of Individual and Family Affairs here at Mercy Care. I want to talk a little bit more about our office, the Office of Individual and Family Affairs. So often you'll hear it referred to as OIFA, but really OIFA is here to support members and families. We can help with system navigation, advocacy, empowering, engaging, and educating members, as well as we have oversight over peer and family support services. So we always are working to have training opportunities available for peer and family support specialists, and also partner very closely with our peer and family organizations. And I think I saw Ren on the phone, so shout out to Ren as well. And I'm sure our other peer runs are here as well. But we believe that members and families have a choice in the services that they get, and they also have a voice and valuable input to contribute to our system. So if you want to connect with OIFA, again, we put that email address in the chat. And another way to stay connected with OIFA is also through the weekly newsletter. So this weekly newsletter is not just a Mercy Care newsletter. We contribute to it, but Access is actually the one that puts it out every Friday. Within the newsletter, they talk about different conferences that are happening, different committees that you could get involved in. I think sometimes they even put job postings on there for peer support, family support, and advocate positions. So if you want to stay a part of that newsletter, you can text OIFA list to 22828 if you have text messaging. If you are on your computer, if you want to click the link in chat, that will also take you to the sign up. And if you want to get really fancy with it, there's a QR code on the screen, and all you need to do is open up the camera on your iPhone or Android or smartphone device. Have your camera focus on that square, and a link should pop up right from your camera to the website as well. Mercy Care will be implementing Pat Deegan and Associates evidence-based practice of personal medicine coaching, which you'll be learning a little bit more about in today's session. But this conference was really to kick off this exciting initiative for the new REBA ACC. So this training will start in August, and by the end of 2023, our hope is that we have over 300 staff trained, which are the rehab specialists, and we also will be seeing the personal medicine goal added to the individual service plans, or ISPs. And now, with that being said, I want to turn it over to Anthony to introduce our presenter.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Today's title of the presentation is The Power of Personal Medicine, Moving Through the Challenges. And today's presenter is Missy Rufo. She's as PDA's Director of Content and Program Development. Missy has the opportunity to work with customers all around the world, providing coaching, technical assistance, and support. She works with a team to develop the content and training material used to support everyone using Pat Deegan's recovery approach. Missy has used Common Ground and Pat's recovery approach in her own work as a psychiatric rehabilitation practitioner for many years, and has been seeing firsthand the impact it has had on providers and service users, bringing them together to work more collaboratively and amplifying the voice of the user. So we want to welcome Missy.
Well, thank you, Anthony, and thank you to our friends here at Mercy Care and OIFA. Really happy to be here and talk a little bit more with you about personal medicine today. As was mentioned, certified personal medicine coaching is something that Mercy Care has discovered with us and is invested in bringing to you all to best support the folks that you're working with. I'm going to say, for my own experience, I have been using personal medicine since about 2007 in my work and in my personal life. As you learned, if you were part of our first session on Tuesday, my days are running together at this point. We talked a lot about personal medicine and kind of where it came from. And so today we're going to take a little bit deeper of a dive. Some of the content that I'm going to talk about today and share with you is a preview to what would be presented in the Certified Personal Medicine Coach training. So just to give you a little bit of a taste and kind of a deeper understanding to personal medicine. So I thank you all again for joining us, if this is your second time with us. So I'm not completely sure of the audience if you all were here for the first part the other day, but I do want to just do a bit of a recap, just in case folks weren't here to hear about where personal medicine came from, and to just kind of refresh your memory. It's a new concept for a lot of you. So I want to start with kind of an overview of what Pat shared on our call the other day of personal medicine and where it came from. And Pat talked a lot about her own story, how she was diagnosed with schizophrenia when she was a senior in high school. And the message that she received back then was, well, you have a diagnosis, and much like folks who have diabetes are going to have to take medicine for the rest of their life, you're going to have to take high-dose antipsychotics for the rest of your life. And we think you need to kind of retire from life, without saying it that way, but they pretty much told her to retire from life by saying, you know, avoid stress, take your medicine, go to treatment, and you'll be okay. And that was what Pat calls a prognosis of doom. It's this message that, you know, your hopes and dreams are now pushed aside because of this diagnosis. And at that time, you know, recovery and getting and keeping the things we want in life were not at the forefront of her treatment. And so Pat shared one day how she kind of stumbled into self-care all by herself. No one had ever said to her, Pat, there are things that you can do that can help diminish the distressing voices that you're hearing. There are things that you have within you that can help you. Everything was external, very medical model. You know, take your meds, go to your appointments, avoid stress. That was kind of her treatment plan. And one day, Pat just stumbled into self-care with her old Sony Walkman. And she talks about how she, for anybody in a generation, you know, a pre-90s generation, mixing tapes and creating playlists on our tape decks and listening through the Sony Walkman was what Pat discovered was a really powerful piece of medicine for her. And at that time, she didn't call it personal medicine, but she knew that when she put her Walkman headphones on and listened to the music, the mixtapes that she made, it helped to decrease the distressing voices. And that was really powerful for Pat, right? That kind of springboarded her into realizing, like, hey, there are things that I can do. I don't just have to idly sit by and wait for medicine to work. I don't just have to sit by and do what my therapist suggests that I do or tells me to do. There are things that I can do. I can get active in my recovery, and I can use this great tool of my Walkman to help me with my to help me diminish those voices. And so several years later, as you know, Pat went on to get her PhD in clinical psychology. And she spent a lot of time out in Kansas in the late 90s. And she was doing a lot of research. She met with folks around. Her goal was to learn about how people use psych meds in their recovery. So she had all these meetings set up with folks. And what she expected to hear in her 60-minute interviews that she had with folks was about their pill medicine and how their pill medicine helped them in their recovery. And she found it fascinating that, folks would talk about their pill medicine for, the first maybe 10 minutes or so. And then they would go on to other things that they do for themselves that work. And if you remember, she met this man named Joe out in Kansas who, was a rural farmer. And he was living with bipolar disorder, using meds in his recovery, was doing well. But he talked to her about how he used complex mathematic problems when he was feeling his mania kind of start to ramp up. There was something about doing math problems that helped him focus, that helped him to stay on an even keel. And that really fascinated Pat. He talked to her about math being medicine. And that's not something that at that time she had ever heard anybody say. I'm not sure I've ever met anybody myself who says math is medicine. More power to them if that helps them. And so as she continued to meet with folks, she was hearing a very similar thing, right? She was hearing and learning from people about all of those things that they do that are coming from within them, and that help to support them in their recovery. And it kind of shifted the research she was doing. And so Pat, eventually coined this term personal medicine. And in one of the first papers that she wrote, she defined personal medicine as the self-initiated, non-pharmaceutical self-care strategies that serve to give us meaning and purpose in life and that help diminish distress. And it's personal medicine so powerful because as we talk about, and Pat talked about the other day, personal medicine can be those big things in life that give our lives meaning and purpose, right? So for this gentleman with his dog, she shared how, getting up and caring for his dog was a reason for him to get out of bed every morning. It helped him to connect with other dog walkers in his community, which helped him to break through any isolation he was experiencing. And so, in doing this and caring for his dog, it became this powerful personal medicine, and it gave him a meaning and purpose in life. And that's a really hard question for folks to answer sometimes. If you recall on the worksheet, on the second page, the question is, what's something that gives your life meaning and purpose? And this can be really challenging for people to answer. And so looking at those bigger things in life, those things that help us get out of bed in the morning, taking care of a pet, taking care of a family member, getting to my job on time. My work is a really important part of my life, and I don't know what I would do if I didn't have it. So getting up and going to work every morning is a big part of my personal medicine. But Pat also talked about personal medicine that helps diminish stress, and that personal medicine can be those smaller things that we do, right? So maybe some little things that help us get through specific challenges. So she talked about this woman and her gardening, right? She felt by going out in her garden, getting her hands in the soil, feeling the earth, working in the garden helped her feel connected to nature. She discovered and learned that in caring for the plants and breathing in the fresh outdoor smells, it helped to ground her and to bring her peace. And this helped tremendously when she was experiencing flashbacks. And so with personal medicine, it's those big things, but it's also those little things that can help us get through a specific challenge we may be experiencing. And I'm going to dive a little bit into another tool that we use here, and that's part of the Certified Personal Medicine Coach training, which are our personal medicine cards that really help us to find some new things that we can use that will become our personal medicine. And so they help us through our challenges. I also want to reflect on this idea that Pat shared, that there are other things other than pills that can change our biochemistry. So when we think about biochemistry, we think about medicine, right? Think about having a headache. And so I have a headache and I take an aspirin, and the effect is that my headache goes away or my pain goes away. And that's implementing a change in our biochemistry, right? That medicine, that pill is helping to change things in our biochemistry. But we have learned that there are other things, things that we do, things around us, things that we're engaged in, that can also change our biochemistry, right? So looking at this image of a father and his daughter, it just touches my heart. I can feel like the love, and I just want to smile when I look at this picture because I can see the love and I can feel the love. And I'm reminded of when my daughter was that age and we would hug and snuggle, and how that made me feel, and how that love can change our biochemistry. Laughter can change our biochemistry, right? Think about times in your life when you may have, been sad or angry or upset, and, sat down and watched a funny movie or listened to a comedian, or just talked and laughed with friends. And that can help us to boost our mood. Laughter is powerful medicine, and laughter can change our biochemistry. We know that things like exercise can change our biochemistry. If I'm feeling angry or agitated, I can go out for a walk or a run, or I can lift weights to help channel that anger or that energy into something else so I feel better. So there are all these things that we can do outside of medicine that can change our biochemistry. And it's a really, really important thing to remember as we're working with folks, right? So, we can get really caught up in mental health treatment with making sure people take their pills. But we also need to be really, really conscious and aware of the things that people are doing to help themselves. It's such a powerful thing to know what people's personal medicine is, because that can greatly impact their lives, their recovery, and their biochemistry. And so if you remember, that one of the things that was fascinating about the research at Kansas was that all of the folks Pat was talking with, and that they were doing in addition to their pill medicine that helped them, like Joe with his math and Ju with taking care of her grandson. Those things were powerful medicine for people. But they didn't tell their treatment providers. And this was a really powerful thing, because it shows the agency and the power we have within ourselves for us to look within ourselves and discover these things on our own. When people didn't tell their team about their personal medicine and how it helped them in recovery, it took away from that pathway to recovery for them, right? Had folks shared with their team and with their doctor the things that they were doing to help themselves, their treatment would have progressed in a very different way. Their recovery would have progressed in a very different way. But because it was the early 90s and a bit of a different time, those folks weren't asked, what are you doing to be well? What are you doing to help yourself? And we know that the mental health system has come a very, very long way since then, since Pat did those interviews. But the truth is that there still is very, very heavy focus in mental health treatment on meds and therapy, that we often forget to ask that really, really important question. What do you already know how to do that helps? This question is so important for us personally. It gives us agency. It helps us to grow and to build our confidence when we can recognize that we have a healer within ourselves and that we don't always have to look outside of ourselves for the answer. We can look within. I have a power within me. And guess what? That gives me confidence. That helps me to boost my confidence. That helps me to take different steps that I didn't think I would take on my own. And so when we can ask folks this question right from the get-go, what do you do that helps? It helps people to recognize that they are not the problem. They are part of the solution. And so many times in mental health treatment, people come through the door, right? They sit down and they do an intake or an assessment, and we focus in on what's wrong or what happened to you. We don't often ask, what do you already know how to do that helps? Because if we can switch to that and we can ask that question from the very beginning, we already know what strengths this person has. And we can use those strengths to help inform us in the work we're doing, to help inform us in treatment planning, and to really help people use their strengths and rely on their strengths. Because our goal isn't to keep people in treatment forever, right? Like, we want people to come in, get treatment, and find their way in life. And if we can support people with this question, what do you already know how to do that helps, and build upon that and help them find and discover more personal medicine, people have the tools to take with them. They don't have to rely on the doctor. They don't have to rely on the therapist. They don't have to rely on the case manager. I've got things within me that can help. And that's a really powerful, powerful thing. As I said, the folks in Kansas never shared what the things they were doing that we're now calling personal medicine with their team. And this now is so, so, so important. So we say that finding that right balance between the things that we do, or our personal medicine, and what we take, our pill medicine, is the pathway into recovery for so many people. If our personal medicine and our pill medicine are out of balance, we are much more likely to stop using or to decrease our pill medicine because it's getting in the way of what matters to us. And so that's why it's so, so important for folks to speak up and to share with the team what their personal medicine is. So for instance, I love this image. Again, another image that just warms my heart. You can see the love and the connection that's happening in this image. But so this gentleman, his personal medicine is taking care of his son, getting up in the morning, making sure he gets on the school bus and has breakfast each morning. That is his personal medicine because it helps him to get out of bed. It helps him to feel valued. And his team should know this, right? Anyone who's on my team should know that my personal medicine is being a good parent and taking care of my child because it helps me feel connected to them and it helps me to get out of bed. If the pill medicine he's taking is interfering with that, things are out of balance, right? So for this individual, he was taking a medication that was making him feel really tired and really groggy in the morning, and he was having a hard time getting out of bed. So that's a place when personal medicine and pill medicine are out of balance. So if we can share with the doctor, with the team, and ask them to work with us on addressing this, that is the first step to finding the right balance. We often say here that anytime an individual and a team member or a doctor meet, that there are two experts in the room, right? So a doctor is an expert in medicine and in diagnosing and in treating the person. A therapist is an expert in DBT and CBT and other treatment milieus. Case managers are experts in everything. They know how to do everything and work through everything. But me, as the individual receiving care, I am an expert in me. I am the only person who knows how that medicine is affecting me, how I feel in my body, how the personal medicine that I'm using makes me feel. So being able to share that with my team and bring our expertise together to find that right balance is incredibly important, right? So if this gentleman walked into his doctor and said, hey, this pill medicine is working great. I'm feeling better, but it's making me really tired in the morning. I can't get up and take care of my son, which is part of my personal medicine. We need to work together to get through this, right? And if people can have this conversation, and I say from a provider perspective, I want to hear people come to me with this. I want to see people activated in their care. I don't want people coming in and just being like, tell me what to do or fix me. I want to have a partnership with the individual who's receiving care. It's not my job alone to fix things. It's our job as a team to work together and to find that balance and to find what works best for the individual. So if he didn't tell his doctor that he was experiencing, this grogginess and can't get out of bed in the morning, chances are he might stop taking the medicine, right? How many folks have you worked with who their pill medicine or the side effects of that medicine were getting in the way of the things that mattered? That's why people stop taking medicine. That's why people tweak their own medicine. Not because they want to be non-compliant or not take the medicine. The medicine might be getting in the way of the things that matter to them. So by going to his doctor and saying, hey, let's work on this, they can adjust things, right? The doctor can say, okay, well, let's try maybe taking it at a different time, or maybe adjusting the dosage, or maybe adjusting the medication so that he can still do the things that give his life meaning and purpose. And he can still do his personal medicine. And it's such a powerful, powerful shift to the way that, mental health services have been for so long. Being able to voice and work together with the team is such a powerful thing. One of the other things that if you go through a personal medicine course and you learn about personal medicine, is that personal medicine is dynamic. And what do I mean by that? Well, as humans, we change, we grow, we go through challenging phases in our lives, we age, we can't do things that we used to do. Our lives are dynamic. We're constantly changing and growing. And because of that, our personal medicine also needs to be dynamic and it needs to meet us where we are. I have lots of personal medicine that I use, right? So I have some personal medicine that I use every single day. And that is taking my dog for a walk every day helps me to feel connected with her. And it also helps me to get out of the house and to clear my head and just kind of refresh my day. When I don't use my personal medicine, like today, I couldn't go for a walk because it was raining. I feel such a difference. And so I have to find something else that I can do that's going to help me have that same feeling, right? So instead of going for a walk, we just played with her toys in the living room for a little bit. So we were still feeling connected. I was focusing my energy on something else and not thinking about work and not thinking about all the things I had to do today. I was able to shift and use a different personal medicine. So that's really, really important. There's also personal medicine that I have that I use more like a PRN. So if I am feeling extra anxious or challenged in a different way, I have other personal medicine that I can pull out of my back pocket and that I can use. Another thing is our lives change, right? So seasons change, at least here in Pennsylvania. So I live in Pennsylvania, and the personal medicine that I use in the summertime, I can't always use in the wintertime, right? So one of my personal medicines in the summer, if you can believe it, is fishing. So I love to go fishing. I have a friend that I go fishing with, and we go to creeks and we go to lakes, and we do that quite often. And it's really it's helpful that we can connect on that shared experience, but it's also fun. It helps me to connect in nature, and I just really, really enjoy it. I can't fish in the wintertime. I don't do ice fishing. We don't have a place to do ice fishing here in Pennsylvania. So I always have to make sure that, as the seasons begin to change, I need to look at my personal medicine and see where I need to make adjustments. Do I need to shift things? Do I need to find some new personal medicine that I can use to fill that gap? And so it's really important that we think about personal medicine as this, something that we're always working on. Personal medicine I used in 2007 when I first learned about personal medicine is extremely different from the personal medicine I use today. I'm a very different person. I have a very different life than I did then. But personal medicine is still a part of my life. And so, once we discover our personal medicine and put it into action, we need to always be adjusting it as we grow, as we learn more, as we find new things that help us. So we're always looking to add to our personal medicine toolbox so that we can always reach from within ourselves to find something that'll help. And so, as I said on our last call, the worksheet helps us to really think through what we might already be doing to discover and see our powerful personal medicine, but it's not a once and done. We don't ever just do a worksheet as an activity and file it away and forget about it. We're constantly, as I said, growing and adding to it and making sure that it's as powerful as possible. And if a personal medicine isn't working because we've had a big change or anything's going on in our lives, it's important that we spend some time reflecting on why it's not working. Things like, so a couple of years ago, I had surgery on my foot, and walking every day has been a part of my personal medicine for several years. It is really powerful for me. And I had surgery on my foot, and I couldn't walk for a couple of months, and that was really kind of devastating for me because I had come to rely on that medicine so much to be an important part of my life. It helped me with so many things. And so I had to spend some time reflecting on what other things I could do that would help me feel calmer and that would help me feel less anxious and help me to clear my head without walking. So anything that we can do or adjust over time is really, really important for our recovery and really, really important for our personal medicine. It is this dynamic thing that grows and changes and shifts. Personal medicine also helps us in other areas of our life. So we can use personal medicine for our mental health challenges. We can use personal medicine for our physical health challenges. Personal medicine is not a mental health only tool. And the more that we all as providers, and this is why we ask you to go through this as well, using that worksheet to discover your personal medicine, because personal medicine is a human experience. I have personal medicine that I use for my physical health. People have personal medicine that they can use for their spiritual health, for their social health, for their financial health. And so when we talk about personal medicine, recognizing that it doesn't live in this box of mental health, that we can use it for lots of things in our life. So if you recall in the worksheet, it asks what's something you do and how does it help? And then it asks you to think about what other areas or what other challenges in your life it can help you with. So I shared for myself that, walking is my personal medicine, helps me feel connected. It helps me manage my anxiety and clear my head. But it's twofold for me, and it also helps me with my physical health. So several years ago, I was at a doctor's appointment and my blood pressure was high. She kept retaking it. She had me come back in at different points to check it again, and it was still really high. And she wanted to put me on a medication for blood pressure. And I really, really did not want to do that. I just didn't want to do that. I had my own internal stigma around it, and I've thought that I should be able to fix this on my own. And so she was agreeable to that, and we talked about things I could do, and walking became a part of my personal medicine for my physical health. And so, yes, it helps me with my anxiety. Yes, it helps me to feel connected, but it also helps me to manage my blood pressure. It helps me to keep my weight within a range of where I want to be so that I don't gain too much weight and so that I don't have to be on blood pressure medicine. And it's worked for me. I have been able to go successfully for several years now, and my blood pressure is completely normal. And so helping people recognize as well that personal medicine can also help with their physical health. It doesn't always have to just be connected to their mental health. And it's a really powerful thing, right? We go back to that older idea of medicine, that ancient idea of medicine, that medicine is in your community. Medicine is in the things that you do. Medicine is in the steps that you take. And so it's really a powerful thing to help people recognize that there are things we can do for ourselves outside of treatment, outside of pills that we can support us. I want to show you a little bit of data. We have been doing certified personal medicine coaching for almost 3 years now. We have close to 400 certified personal medicine coaches around the globe. We have a whole bunch who are currently in training and a whole bunch that are beginning training in the next few months. So we just keep continuing to grow. And I guess it was January of 2021, we wanted to do our own kind of internal survey to see how things were going. And so we began surveying our candidates before they started the course, and then again after they completed the course, on how confident they felt in supporting people in very specific challenges like grief, challenges like distressing voices, anxious feelings, depressed mood, food cravings, all of those things. And what we have found, and this is very anecdotal, I am not a statistician. We are going to work with somebody to dive deeper into this data, but I just want to show the power of what going through the CPMC course has done. And so the blue is obviously the pre-test. So folks coming in are asked to rate their level of confidence on a 1 to 5 scale. 1 being I'm not at all confident, to 5 meaning I'm very confident. In the areas of, am I confident that I am supporting folks in being self-directed in their recovery? Am I confident in supporting folks through anger challenges? How confident do I feel in supporting people with anxious feelings? How confident do I feel with supporting folks around feeling depressed? How confident do I feel around supporting folks in distressing voices? That is wrong, false beliefs. We've changed that to troublesome beliefs. But how confident do I feel in supporting folks who are experiencing troublesome beliefs? And it's very fascinating to see. As you can see, in every single category, the confidence level of folks who have been through the training has increased anywhere from 0.5 point to almost 2 points, which, just looking at, as I said, I am not a statistician by any means, But I think this is a very powerful slide because what we're learning as we do every single CPMC course is that being able to just talk with folks about what they're doing and helping them to see what they're doing that helps to shift our conversations. It helps us to have different conversations, and it helps us to not always just try to give people the answer.
We have a question, Missy, and I think two people have the same question.
Sure.
Let's see. It says, how would someone go through the CPMC?
So, I mean, we offer open trainings twice a year, but I think Mercy Care's plan is to kind of, once they get their folks trained, and I don't know if somebody from Mercy Care wants to talk a little bit about this more, but I think the plan is for them to be able to train other folks out there. Is that correct?
Yeah, the plan is that we're going to be offering a series of trainings. So Blythe put that in the chat. So those series of trainings that we'll let the providers know, and those that would be, certifying, I'm sure we'll be reaching out to them, letting them know when those trainings are going on. At the beginning, we talked about it starting in August of this year and running through 2023 of next year. So look for information on that. Thank you, Missy.
Yeah, sure. Was there another question, or you said it was the same question?
It was the same question. Two people had it. Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions about any of the things I discussed? Because before we go into the personal medicine cards, do folks have any questions or reflections about any of this content?
Someone asked, will there be a cost for the training? I don't believe there will be a cost for the training for those being trained through Mercy Care.
I believe that's correct, yes. As I said earlier, one of the things that I want to spend the rest of the time on is talking with you all and sharing what we call our personal medicine cards. So we have currently 16 categories of what we call personal medicine cards. So as you can see, we have everything from anger, anxious feelings, concentration, distressing voices, effective communication, feeling depressed, food cravings, grief, harm reduction, negative thinking, oppression, self-harm, sleep, trauma, troublesome beliefs, and worry. And each of these categories is kind of a deck of cards. And within that deck, there's typically between 15 and 20 cards, as well as a blank card. And what I hope you'll notice here is that the title of these cards is not focused on a symptom necessarily or a diagnosis. These are very common challenges that people experience. I don't have to have a mental health diagnosis to be angry. I don't have to have a mental health diagnosis to have trouble concentrating. I don't have to have a mental health diagnosis to experience any of these challenges. And so with personal medicine, we try to present things from this idea that we're all human beings. We all experience challenges. Over the last 2 years, almost 3 years now, we've been through so much with the pandemic that I'm sure we can all say we have anxious feelings. We can all say that we've struggled with food cravings. We probably have had some sleep challenges, or even some feeling depressed or grief challenges. So these are all things that everybody experiences. And when we can approach things from that perspective, it helps to reduce some of that even internalized stigma that folks may have. So let's take a look at the cards. All of the personal medicine cards are structured in the same way. So this is an example of one of our personal medicine cards for anxious feelings. As you see, there's a dotted line down the center. And so that's for our paper and pencil folks who like to have paper, like to cut things out. So what you would do here is cut this card out and fold it in half. On the left side of the card would be the front of your card, and the right side would be the back of your card. So on the left side or the front of every card is a generic strategy. And where did these strategies come from? They did not come from a textbook. They did not come from therapeutic treatment options. These have all come from the lived experience of recovery. So in all of the years that Pat has been studying this and the work that we have done and talking with other people, we developed these cards from things that have worked for other people. So somebody who had anxious feelings reported that refocusing on things I can control is a helpful personal medicine strategy for them. So it says when we feel anxious, we often worry about things that are out of our control. Refocusing on what we can control in a situation helps us feel less anxious. So then the back of the card is how we make this really powerful personal medicine. And we personalize that strategy. So on the back of the card, there might be some questions, there might be some check boxes, there might be some instructions to help the person personalize this strategy. So this one says, when I'm anxious about something I have no control over, I say to myself, and maybe it's, a mantra that I use. And I kind of try to repeat that mantra when I'm feeling anxious and I know that I can't control things. There's also check boxes or ideas that folks can say, when I'm feeling I don't have control, I can refocus on my breathing, or I can refocus on how I can get support in the situation. Maybe I want to focus on what I can control in the situation, my reaction to the situation, or just a different idea I might have. And so once a person has selected a card and personalized it, it's really important that we spend some time thinking about how we're going to use it. So much like the worksheet, personal medicine cards are form fillable, so they are able to be, filled out on a computer or a tablet or on a phone, but really, really tiny. People can kind of type in their answers. They can carry it with them. They don't have access to a printer. Or if you're working in a telehealth setting with somebody, you can utilize it that way. Some people are very, very visual and physical, right? So having that physical reminder on a card can be really helpful. So for myself, I have my personal medicine card taped to my monitor right here, so that when I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling overwhelmed, I can look at that card and it can remind me of what I know works for me and what I can do to help myself. So I always say, think about a time when you have felt overwhelmed by a challenge. How hard is it for you to recall what helps you when you're feeling overwhelmed by this challenge? For me personally, it's very hard. If I'm feeling overwhelmed with stress or anxiety, I might forget, oh, that I need to refocus refocus on things I can control. But if I have that card, I can look at it, I can focus in on it. It can help me to get grounded and to remember, oh yeah, I know this works for me. I'm going to do it. And so we always spend some time, whether it's for ourselves or if we're supporting somebody else, and making a plan for how they're going to use it. Some other ideas are, if perhaps you're using a personal medicine card for sleep and you're trying to use some personal medicine to help you get some better sleep. Right next to your bed is a great place you might want to put your personal medicine card. My colleague Allison likes to be held accountable. So she uses an app that will send her a notification every day. Don't forget to use your personal medicine. And then later on, she gets another notification that says, did you use your personal medicine? And for her, that helps her to stay accountable to herself. Because for her, personal medicine is walking early in the morning. And she says a lot, there are days I don't want to get out of bed. There are days I love my warm bed and don't want to get up and go outside. But knowing that I'm going to be asked that question later, it keeps me accountable and it keeps me getting out and going for a walk every day because I know that it helps me. And so for her, that's how she decides to use it. Some people like to put even just calendar reminders in their phone. So you get a ping every morning. Or if you know that you tend to feel a specific challenge at a certain time of day. Maybe I feel challenged at dinner time with food cravings. Maybe I'll set myself a reminder on my phone to use my personal medicine to help me manage food cravings during that time. Other people like to take a picture and have it on their phone. So, on your lock screen, you might take a picture of your card, or you might take a picture of what your personal medicine is. So every time you pick up your phone, you can see that and be reminded of that. And so again, planning to use the card is going to help us be much more successful and actually following through with using the card. Because again, this is not just an exercise just to do. The goal of using the personal medicine cards is to find some new ways that have been helpful to other people that we might want to include in our own personal medicine toolbox. And then we always, say, take a couple of weeks to try this card out and see if it works for you. Keep track of how many days you did it and how you felt on the days you didn't and how you felt on the days that you did use it. And that helps to answer that last question of, does this personal medicine work for me? So I want to share a short video with you all. I think it was this group that I talked to last week or the other day about Pat's TikTok channel. Pat actually made a TikTok video that I'm going to share with you here. She shares about how she uses her personal medicine for anger card. So I want to share that with you real quick.
Hey friends, it's Pat Deegan. I'm here in my car. Pups are in the car with me. And today I wanted to share with you the power of personal medicine in my life. I use the personal medicine cards we've developed here at PDA all the time in my life. And this is one I keep in the car. And because I really struggle with anger, and I really struggle getting angry when there's a lot of traffic. So my card that helps me deal with that challenge is called Remove My Crown. I love this card. And on the front it says, often we get angry when we think that things should go our way. For example, other drivers should never cut me off. I should be able to go to the front of the line at a restaurant, and my partner should attend to my needs first. We act entitled, like we are royalty, but maybe it's time to take our crown off. And on the back of the card, of my personal medicine card, I can customize it. So what is the crown that I'm concerned about when I'm driving and getting pissed off with traffic? Well, my crown, my entitled thought is, whenever I need to drive somewhere, traffic should part like the Red Sea to let me go first. Now you got to admit that sounds ridiculous, but the truth is I really do get irritated when the traffic doesn't part like the Red Sea in reality. So what do I do to start counteracting that angry, entitled thought? Well, I have to remove my entitled thought. I have to remove my crown. So I say to myself, traffic is not out to get me. I cannot make traffic go away, but I can leave early so I can get to my destination on time. And that's powerful personal medicine for me. I keep it here in the car, and as I head out, and if I encounter traffic, I can use my personal medicine, and I have to keep repeating it because I keep falling back into the trap. But that's okay. Progress, not perfection.
So Pat's a very paper and pencil person, so you could kind of see how she had her card folded. She showed you the front and the back, and you could see she had written in her specific personalized strategy for dealing with that challenge of hers. And she does keep it in her car. She keeps ones at her desk for other things. I've watched her pull them out when she was feeling challenged by something, and she'll pull it out and she'll use it. And so it's just really, we can get really, really creative in helping in using our own personal medicine cards and finding ways to remind us to use them. Any questions about that before I dive into some examples to show you kind of in real world experience what it looks like?
It looks like we're good. We don't have any questions in the chat.
Okay. All right. So let's take a look at some examples. So sometimes we hear people be like, well, these personal medicine cards are great, but how do I really use them? And how do I fill one out? These examples are all real people. The images and names have been changed, obviously, but they come from real examples of people that Pat has worked with or that we have worked with in our own experience. So I'm going to share a little story of a few folks and how their cards helped them. So this is Stephen, and Stephen was experiencing challenges of negative thinking that seemed to ramp up when he went to college. He was originally from a rural farming community, and he was concerned that his small town education wasn't quite up to snuff for the education that other students at his college may have received. It seemed like once he got on campus, the floodgates of that negativity just opened. He started to doubt himself and his ability to do his work. And the more that he doubted himself, the more insecure he became. He would say things to himself like, I'm a stupid hick. I should just go back to where I came from. And these were some of the negative thoughts that were causing him to lose faith in himself. He even started skipping classes because he thought he would just never be able to pass the courses. So Stephen was working with a personal medicine coach and talking about these negative thoughts. And so they pulled out the deck of negative thinking cards. And the thing about the cards, as I said, they're anywhere from like 15 to 20, 22 cards in a deck. And we don't say, I'm going to take this whole deck and go home and use all these cards. It's about going through them and finding one that speaks to us, maybe one or two for us to try. And so Stephen decided he came across the cards of this one called Shrink My Inner Critic Down to Size. And so on the front of the card, you can see in quotes, you can't do math, you're a loser. Most of us have an inner critic that fuels our negative thinking. Imagining our inner critic as something small or silly can help. And so on the back of the card, there's a blank space where Stephen can write in, what it is his inner critic looks like. He can write down some ideas. Stephen decided to draw an image though instead. And he decided to draw Mr. Cranky Pants. So this is how he sees his inner critic, Mr. Cranky Pants. And so each time negative thoughts came up for Stephen, he used this card as a visual. He looked at his card, he had a quick laugh, and he said he actually took a picture of it and had it on his phone. So every time negative thoughts would come up, he would look at his card and laugh. So he has it all with him all the time. Whenever negative thoughts come up, he looks at his card and he said it just cracks him up. He said, when I think of my inner critic as Mr. Cranky Pants, it makes me laugh. And I feel like I have more power now. And it's not magic. It doesn't work every time. He still has bad days. But he says, now I know I have some powerful personal medicine. I'm determined to finish college. And Mr. Cranky Pants isn't going to bring me down. So he used this card for a bit. He found it really helpful. So in reflecting back, he said, yep, this card works for me, and kind of laughed again. Mr. Cranky Pants makes me laugh, which helps me find my power over my negative thoughts. So this is a really great example of, the visualization of a card. If you can draw what Mr. Cranky or your inner critic looks like, or you can write out some things, but whatever works best for people. And this worked really well for him, so he kept on using it. So this is Sean, and Sean was also in college. He was studying engineering, and his dream was to someday be a structural engineer. He wanted to work on projects like new bridges and skyscrapers. However, a few months after he started, Sean became alarmed that police were monitoring his activity. He began to notice lots of patterns in his environment that were actually, what he said, special messages being sent to him. So, for instance, he began noticing yellow cars and black cars were warning him to get back to his dorm room quickly. And in fact, as a result of that, was spending so much time in his dorm room that he was failing his classes. So he's really struggling with this troublesome belief. And so decided to look at the deck of personal medicine cards for troublesome beliefs, and picked this one. This is another really good visual card for folks who might be experiencing some troublesome beliefs. And so the front of the card says, remind myself things are not always what they seem to be. And then we have this little illusion. It says, no matter how many times we look at this illusion, the middle line always seems longer. But that is a false perception. All of the lines are the same length. Sometimes our brain can trick us. And on the back of the card, we highlighted the lines so that you can really see the lines themselves are the same size. And so Sean decided this was going to be a really powerful visual reminder for him. To personalize it, he said, I use this personal medicine when I am noticing patterns of yellow and black cars. It might be random. The patterns might not be what they appear. And so he followed his plan and said that he actually photographed his card and had it on his phone as well. So each time he began to notice those patterns, he stopped and he would look at the card And he said it would, because it's such a visual card, he didn't even have to read the words. He just had to look at the image. And so he said he would look at the lines and be reminded that things aren't always what they seem. And he said for some reason that helped to calm him a bit. And he felt slightly less scared. And so in reviewing his card, how it worked, Sean said, yes, it absolutely helped me. Looking at this card, I calm down. I feel less scared when I see the patterns. So really great example of, that visual representation. Like you said, sometimes you don't even have to read what the card says. Just knowing what's on there and looking at it helps us to kind of get grounded. Because as I said, when we're feeling overwhelmed or stressed out by something, it can be really hard for us to remember what it is that we said we can do to help ourselves. Let's take a look at another one. This is Sue. And Sue has experienced very harsh, distressing voices that would put her down. She would get angry at them, but the more that she shouted at them, the stronger the voices seemed to get. And it was like they were just feeding off of her anger. So she took a look at some of the personal medicine cards for distressing voices. And she found a really powerful one. I have to say this about the distressing voices deck. I'm not somebody who understands distressing voices. There are a lot of challenges I can relate to in some way, but distressing voices for me is hard because I feel like that's a very different, it's not something that everybody experiences. So these personal medicine cards are so powerful when supporting somebody with distressing voices because you can learn so much more about what that experience is like. And the distressing voices cards offer suggestions that I don't know why they work, but they work. And it's really, really powerful. So the card that Sue chose was Show Compassion for My Voices, this compassionate self idea. And it says it can be helpful to think of our voices as an early warning system trying to protect us from harm. Seen from this perspective, voices may be trying to help us. Using our compassionate self, we can thank them for the warning and tell them we will stay safe as we go about our day. And this is a strategy that works for a lot of people who experience distressing voices. So Sue used the back of the card and identified some of the things that her voices say, along with a compassionate response that she could respond to instead of responding angrily and yelling. And she said, one of the voices warns me you are radioactive. And so the compassionate response she came up with was, I'm on it, you can rest now. Another of the voices warned me, keep your eyes down. Her compassionate response, I will definitely be careful. Her voices warn her, you suck. And her compassionate response, I will keep my pride in check. And so this is a very different strategy than she was using, where she was yelling at the voices, right? She was using a compassionate voice. And so this personal medicine card actually worked really well for Sue. She said, I'm so amazed. I always thought these harsh voices were my enemy, but really they are trying to protect me. Now they seem less like monsters and more like scared kids. I'm the grown-up. It's not perfect, but I've come a long way and it feels good to have some control. And she was able to use this card, say, yep, it helped me. And again, I feel like I have more control, which is so important. So when we think about distressing voices or other experiences where people may see things that others don't, medication doesn't always take those things away, right? We know that. It's only a percentage of it that works. So people who experience distressing voices really have to rely on some personal medicine for ways that they can support themselves in getting through those challenges. One of my favorite personal medicine cards for distressing voices is to use one earplug. I worked with a gentleman who had distressing voices. He never told anybody. Everybody thought that he was just paranoid by the way that he was speaking about things. But the more and more we talked, the more I realized that it wasn't paranoia he was experiencing. The voices were telling him that these things are going to happen, and he was repeating them. And so we talked about that, and he finally was able to share with his team that he was hearing distressing voices, and we used the distressing voices cards, and he decided to try the one earplug. And I don't know if anybody's heard of this, but it's really a powerful way to help people with distressing voices. So it says to use an earplug in one ear. Generally, it works best in your dominant ear. So if you're right-handed, starting in your right ear, try it out for a few minutes and see if you get any relief from it. If that doesn't work, put it in the other ear and try again. And for this individual, we saw a marked improvement in his ability to decrease those voices and help him to kind of focus in more on what he wanted to do. And it was such a powerful experience. And one I love to tell that story about, because it's something so easy as, you know, one of those little foam earplugs that you get at the pharmacy, just putting in your ear when the voices are getting too distressing. And it works. I don't know why, but it's a powerful thing. All right, let's take a look at another one. So this is Paco, and this is more of a physical health challenge. So as I said, personal medicine can help us with our physical health as well as our mental health. Paco was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and he needed to cut down on his high carbohydrate foods like sugary treats. So he was working with a personal medicine coach and wanted to look at the food craving cards, because sugary treats and sweets were things that he was craving a lot. And he found the card, which makes me chuckle, avoid food porn. And so this one says, mouth-watering pizza ads on TV at night, pictures of food on social media, baking shows, fast food billboards. These types of, quote, food porn can trigger food cravings. Avoiding food porn is a great way to get control over our cravings. And so on the back of the card, Paco was able to personalize his card to help him to be able to focus when he was having these food cravings. So identifying, where do I get my food porn? He says, well, I watch all those baking shows and I swear my mouth starts watering after 2 minutes. The cravings get really bad. So he comes up with a way to avoid food porn, and says, I've been wanting to watch that new crime drama. I'll watch that at night instead of my baking shows. And so he tried his card for a week. He said, wow, I never realized how many food commercials and food shows there are all in my life. But he followed his card. He enjoys the new crime show. He said it was definitely easier to avoid temptation when I'm not watching the baking shows. So now the commercials are getting me wanting food. So I give into cravings from time to time, but, you know, still work in progress. But he said that this was helpful and he was going to continue doing it. So it turns out crime dramas don't make me hungry. Fantasia. Fantasia is a young woman who was struggled with anorexia, and she was in recovery from her eating disorder. She was engaged in therapy and doing really well. However, after a period of time, she started to self-injure instead of engaging in her eating disorder behaviors. And at that point, she was introduced to the personal medicine cards for self-harm. And Fantasia actually selected, name the oppression contributing to my urge to self-harm. One of the things I want to point out about our personal medicine cards is that every single deck of challenges, we include an oppression card, because sometimes the challenges that we experience have absolutely nothing to do with our mental health. Sometimes the challenges we're experiencing have everything to do with oppression. We also have an entire deck of oppression cards that have different strategies of things that people can do when they're faced with oppression. But if somebody's experiencing a challenge, for instance, self-harm as a result of oppression, this can be a really powerful card, and it can help folks to connect. So this one says, racism, homophobia, poverty, sexism, and other forms of oppression can lead to deep feelings of shame and self-loathing. Harming ourselves is not the answer. Naming the oppression we experience, how it affects us, and joining with others to fight can help. So Fantasia personalized her card. She identified the oppression she experienced is, I've been culture bombed with a message, I am never thin enough. She thought about how this affects her, said, I've struggled my whole life with feeling less than because of my weight. I'm over it. I'm going to fight to end the shaming of women's bodies. The next is for her to find to help her think about the situation differently, and to see what it is, or how other organizations or groups she could find. So she actually found a group called the Body Positive Activism Group and wrote down that information. That's at the Women's Center on Thursdays at 7. And she said this card really helped her to think about her situation in a different way, right? It's not all in my head. It's actually an effect of feeling oppressed, of being oppressed. And so she said that the Body Positive Activism Group is amazing. She's learned she was self-injuring because she was ashamed of her body. She said, now that I'm helping to teach younger girls, they are beautiful just the way they are. And I would be a hypocrite if I self-injured while helping the girls. I haven't self-harmed in 4 months and I'm still going strong. And so she says it's working. It reminds me I'm not less than, and I am part of an amazing community now. And so this is a really powerful card and just highlights, again, the effect that oppressions that we experience really have an impact, and can present us with challenges that are not in my head, that it's not a mental health thing. It's something that's really happening.
We have a couple questions about the cards. We do have a link for those that we did put in the chat, I think, earlier, but we'll go ahead and put that in again right now. But yeah, the cards, the link was just put into the chat for everyone for the cards that we have. And if anyone else does have a question about the cards, feel free to raise your hand, and we can let Missy answer those questions or put it in the chat. So, okay, thank you.
As folks are thinking, I want to go over one final card because I talked about the blank cards and I want to kind of show you how those work. And so sometimes folks might go through, say they identify a challenge they're going through, and none of the cards resonate. And so we've included blank cards so that people can kind of create their own personal medicine strategy, and help them to kind of make a plan for using it. So in this example, this is Keone, and his brother passed away in a car accident. His family held a Christian burial service. At his request, the family agreed to have traditional dancers, as is the custom in his native Hawaiian culture. But following the services, Keone felt it was really having a hard time concentrating. He felt spacey all the time. He was having trouble eating, and was realizing through the work he was doing that this was really about grief and grieving this loss. So he had gone through the personal medicine cards for grief, but did not feel a connection to any of them, and wanted to develop his own. So this is a blank card. It looks very similar. It's just a blank space on the left where you can write in your strategy. We did include those personal medicine, what we call standards, to make sure that it's powerful at the bottom, to make sure that someone's personal medicine is powerful as possible. And on the back of the card is a place to make a plan. So Keone came up with chanting rituals help me honor my brother in a way I think he would like. So this is powerful personal medicine, right? Let's see if it's as powerful as it can be. Is it a specific activity, not a feeling or state of being? Yep, chanting rituals is an activity. Is it something I do now, not a future goal? Yep, he says it's something he's doing. Is it something I do, not something I take? Yes. And does it say how it helps? Helps me to honor my brother in a way I think he would like. So that personal medicine is powerful for him and it's ready to use. So on the back of the card, he sketches out his plan. It says, my brother and I learned traditional Hawaiian chants when we were young. I composed a mele oli, I always say that wrong, in his honor, and I do at least one recital a day. And so Keone then spent some time using this, doing it each day, and saying, hey, after 2 weeks, yep, it's really helping me. And it's helping me to feel connected to my people and to my brother. And I can truly grieve now in a way that feels right for me. So really powerful way for folks to develop their own personal medicine card for a specific challenge. Again, having that physical reminder, being able to look at that card versus just saying, oh, chanting is my personal medicine. No, I can pull out my personal medicine card and be reminded so that I can make it a part of my my regular life. So, any questions?
It looks like we do have a question. They're wanting to know about getting the cards that have the strategies on them. Those cards come as part of the training, correct?
Yes. So in the downloads, You get a copy of all of the blank cards for all of the challenges, and you get a copy of all of the example cards I just shared, along with one that's not filled out.
Mm-hmm.
But yes,
And
in the
then
training you get access to all the other ones.
all the other ones. Okay. Thank you. You do a great job, Missy, of explaining everything. So, so
Okay.
thank you so much. So if we don't have any additional questions, everyone said thank you for the great session. It was wonderful, all the information. So we'll just, anything additional to add or?
I mean, I really do encourage you all, if you haven't, to use that worksheet to discover your own personal medicine, to check out some of those cards, and start asking people that question. What do you already know how to do that helps? And so as we're getting closer and closer towards getting more folks certified and being able to access all these resources, you can start by having that conversation of what do you do that helps, and really helping to focus in on that with people. I guarantee you're going to see a shift in the way things go.
Awesome. Well, we did put the link to the the cards that we've been provided to use currently. We also have a link to our actual events page that'll go in the chat right now if it hasn't already been put in there, and that will take you to all the different sessions that we've already done or what's coming up, and any of the downloads or session handouts. So for the other sessions that Missy and Pat Deegan did, we also have handouts for those. So if you missed it, feel free to go back and download those handouts. You can use your camera as well here on the QR code like Laura talked about earlier. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. And also, Missy shared that Pat Deegan has all the social media, TikToks and YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and all of it. So feel free to follow her as well. And thank you so much for attending the conference today.
Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your conference.
Thank you.